Last time we did the app one and I showed you app one is working fine. We did a lot of things and some things I did not explain in detail and that will be clear as we progress in the few lessons after this. Okay, so that's the goal because I don't want to jump and explain everything here. It, the main goal was to make it in working condition. Let's try to see if it's working correctly now. Let me run yarn start. Okay, so I'm able to go to page one and page two. Let me add one more page in this one, and so that we have three pages. Let's add one more page, home, app one home. I'll name it app one home. One more home page, RLCE, and let's try to add it in the routing. So app one home. So when user will come at the main directory, I will go to app one home, and then they can go to page one or page two. So let's put to page one. I have link. I will put this link in the home also. And let's copy this one. And here I can go to both the links, page one and page two. Okay, let's go here. Page one. Okay, I have to copy this on page one and page two also. Going to home page. And I will add this to page two also so that from anywhere we can go to anywhere. So let's refresh home, page two, page one, page two, home, page one, page two. Okay, so we have the links. Let me update this here in the document. So in this one, I will update the navigation routing file because we added a new route. So let's add this routing one. I update the routing one. I will update the page one and page two. So page one. Let's update the page one and page two. This is page one. And this is page two. So update the page two. I will add one more page. Okay. I will add one more page. That is this one. App one home page. Source pages app one homepage.js will be like this. Okay, so I did few more code in the same application. Now let's see how it works. So it works nicely. I go home page, page one, page two. So I believe everyone is done till here. Have you done this one till here? Is your app one working? I told you to do the app one. Is it working fine for you? I told last time to complete the app one. Who has completed that one at home? Okay, no one is replying. That means you have not completed, but do it today. Now, same thing what I did app 1, I will do in app 2. And we will talk some of the things which we did last time. I will not explain everything in detail, but we will go one by one to understand what exactly meaning of each line is. Okay, so we'll do something today, something next class. Before that, I will do in the app 2 same thing what I did for the app 1. So for that, I will try to follow my document and see if I copy my document part, everything is working or not. So this is the first thing is domain part, which we discussed last time, and we will do it again today in some time. So we have to create 4 folders: container, app1, app2. These 4 folders are already created. Git ignore file. Let's see, we have git ignore file in app2. Yeah, I have git ignore file. Then I'll go package.json. Let's go to package.json for the app2. I will change the name to app2, and other things looks good. So package.json is good. Then I'll check the command webpack command.js. So it is there. Then I'll go to webpack dev. This is going to 4002. That's good. I change it to app2. That is also good. And the bootstrap file is going to app2 index. That is also good kind of thing. It's okay. This one. Okay. So webpack 2 is also going correctly. Okay. Now next is prod, webpack prod. Let's take the prod. Here mode is production, and I have to change this name. Here I didn't it. Let me update this one. Okay, common. This is the dev. Here also I have to change it to app1. In the app1 I have to change app1, and in the app2 I have to change it to app2. Okay, let's go to change to app2 here. And app2 is also going to bootstrap. So whenever I call app2 index, it will go to bootstrap file, not the index.js file. So when we call from container, we will call the bootstrap.js. But when we load this app2, it goes from the index.js. And here we are calling the bootstrap. When we call from container, it will be called through app2 index, and that is the bootstrap. Okay. Dev is fine. If app1 is going to 4001, app2 is going to 4002. Is it 4002? Next, let me change in the package.json. Let me change this to app1. So main file is going to index.js. Okay, now next is prod, and then dev. Okay, we are done with the dev. Next is I will copy and see if app2 is working fine. Okay, so now let's create the index.html. So here I say root, actually it will be different. Here it's app2 root. In app1 it is app1 root, and in the container it is root. Okay, so let's create these pages 1, 2, and 3. So I'll go to create a source folder, and then you also do along with me. It will be easy if you have not done it. New file called as Page 1.js. Okay, this is my page 1.js. Let me see here. Okay. So we are going to page 1.js. Let's create one page 2.js. Rename it. Let's see. And let's create one more app2 home.js. Okay, so this should be app2. Just renaming it, and then this will be the page 1. So I told you don't try to replicate the same name. So here we will make it page 3 and page 4. We don't want to make the name same. Same. Uh, the thing is that if you make it same,
Sir, sorry to interrupt. I have one question.
yeah.
So, like I have completed your lectures till React and Redux, I have to start with the micro front end, and I
Yeah.
want to know if the micro front end part is this is kind of architecture or part of front end or back end. What is this?
So it's a architecture on the front end. So
Okay.
and we are building micro applications. So called as macro front end. So previously we were making all application in one folder, only one React part. Now in macro front end, every folder behaves separately, and one folder doesn't know anything about the folder two. Only the communication happens through some
Like there is one
connection.
architecture called microservices, like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, microservices on the front end.
Okay, thank you.
So I create a component page for page 3 because, as I told you, that we need to change the name because otherwise, it will clash. So we have to give some unique name to each application. So if I keep page 1, then when it will try to load to page 1, he will not know whether it has to go to page 1 from the application 1 or 2. It confuses between the because it caches the component, and when you try to go to another component with the same name, it will think it is in the cache. It will load that cache one. So it is better we should name it separately like component. File name can be same, but component name should be different. But since we try to make it consistent, so file name I change to whatever component name is. So here it's going to 3 and it's going to 4. So I'll put this all in the document. You can copy and you can paste it also. Right now I'm trying to do same thing app1, taking from the app1 and pasting it to app2. Now let's go to create routing routes.js. Routes.js. So here we'll call page 3, page 4, and app2, page 3, and page 4. Okay, so we are completed with the routes part. Then create the route factory. In the route factory, we will put the same code. Next is navigation manager. And I will copy this navigation manager. So here we will change it to app2 because we'll be using the app2 for this one. So this part is very important. If you change the string, it will change everywhere where it is called. And if you don't do that, then it will not work. Here container will remain same because container is one, but wherever app1 was there, we have to change to app2. Then index.js, then we will create the bootstrap.js. So whenever you create a new application, these are the basic files and folder you have to do copy it. And on top of it, you have to write your own React application. But this is the bootstrap part, which you have to do for every application which you create. There will be slight difference in the container index.js file, but other files will be same. Okay, so we are done with the bootstrap. That's all. Let's try to see how it works. Let me go to package.json first. So it's going to web prod dev. Okay, let's try to run this one, the app2. So something is not right. Let's see, it's not working. So yeah, so in the bootstrap, if you see in the bootstrap, we have here we are calling app1 for app2. So that's the reason it's not working. I made it to app2. Now see app2 is working fine. I'm going to page 4, home, page 4, page 3, home, page 4. This is working fine. So I'll give you 5 minutes to copy the same thing what you have here in the app 1 and try to change it for only app 2. Now how we know that we have to go to index.js file, how it is knowing that it is going to index.js file? So if you go to common, webpack.common, it is saying entry path should be directory name, then we have to go to source, in the source we have to go to index.js. So this is the where we know that the first entry point is the index.js file. That's the reason it is going to index.js file. So try to see your app one is working fine, and I'll give you 5 minutes now. Finish the same thing for the app two. And if you have any questions, just ping me. So time starts now. Okay. So let's talk about one thing before we move further to the container part. In the bootstrap, I just call the create root and then we call the, cannot see the screen? Okay, baby. Yes, okay. Can you see the screen now? Okay. So in the bootstrap file, we did not write this directly because because we did not write directly this here directly, and instead of this mount point we could have used this app2 root. Okay, so but there are two things. One is when we are loading this app2, it goes to index.js file where we know we have to call the element this app2 root. But when we will be calling this file from the container, we will not be calling the index.js file as you see in the webpack dev. We are calling the bootstrap file. So in the bootstrap file, we pass the mount point because from container the mount point will be different. In this app1, the mount point in this app2, the mount point is app2 root because in the public HTML it is app2 root. But when I go to container, there is no app2 root. So if I call this index.js file from the container, then container don't have this app2 root. So where it will show this app2 content. If we are calling app2 directly, then it will show in the app2 root ID wherever div is there. Okay, let me explain you in a different way. So let's go to here. So this is the index.js file, and this is a bootstrap.js file. And then third is app2, we are using app2 root. But this ID is only available in the app2 folder. In container, we don't have this ID. So if I take, what happened? I cannot see the screen. 1 second, my screen has become black. Yes, yeah. In container, we don't have this app2 root. App2 root is only available in the app2. So there should be some way in the container to call the app2 and load it anywhere in the div I want in the container. So in the container, we don't have this ID. So we cannot call index.js, this index.js, which is pointing to app2 root. That's the reason we call index.js only in the app2 folder. But when we are trying to export it, we're trying to export it using the bootstrap file. Because in the bootstrap file, we are passing the mount point that can be any ID in the container. And we pass that mount point from the container and we can load this app to anywhere in the container. If I call the index directly in the container, then it will load in this ID. But this ID does not exist in the container. So we cannot call index directly in the container. If I call directly in the container, you will see error because it will try to find this ID as mentioned in the index file. My screen is getting big. I'm not able to see. Okay. So now I can see. So this app2 root, this index file is only called from the app2 folder, not from the container. Because in the container, we don't have this ID. So we have to mount it at some different place, not this ID. And so we call the bootstrap. Then we will call this mount function from the container, and we will give the ID here wherever we have to mount it in the container. So that's the reason index.js is only called from the app2. And when we go to container, we call this mount function. And in the mount function, we give the mount point, whatever point we want to give it to show the app2 folder. Is that clear? Any question on this part? Whatever I explained now, why we are using index.js in the app2 folder and we are calling bootstrap directly from the container, the reason is index has this ID, which we call it from the app2, and from the bootstrap, we pass the new ID here from the container where we will show the app2 there in the container. Okay, let me write down if you can. Let me write down in this one so you will remember. So we have index.js, which uses app1 root to display the content of app1 folder. And we use app2.root to display the content of app2 folder. When we call app1 or app2 from container does not have app1 root div tag, div id in div tag, and app2 root id in div tag. So we call bootstrap.js from container, and in mount function we pass the of reference of app1 or app2 to display the content of app1 or app2. So from the container, I will create two files. One will take the mount from the app1, and it will put its mount point, whatever ID we want to show in the container. It will pass that here for the app1 separately and app2 separately, and the content will be displayed at that place. So in index, we only call app2. We only call from the app2 folder, not from the container. And from the container, we only want this function where we want to show the React components in this mount point, and we will create two files, one for app1, and the mount point will be different, and app2 will have different mount point. If it's not clear, then maybe if you do multiple times, you will see how it becomes clear. Okay, right now this is the only explanation I can give you. So now I have to copy this whole thing for app2 also. I will not do this one. I will just say follow all the same content above to create a new app2 folder. To create above to copy in app2 folder. Okay, so you have to follow the same steps and put it in the app2. Make sure to keep the component name different. So there should be page 1 component, component in one app and page 3 component in another app. Don't try to copy page 1 component at both the places. Okay, so we have to follow the same path. Now let's try to do it in the container. Okay, so few things will be same in the container and few things will be different. So I will just try to, so this common file will be same. We don't have to change anything. Webpack Dev, in the Dev we are pointing to 4000 and we are calling app1 with the HTTP localhost 4001 remote entry, and we are calling app2 with the localhost 4002 remote entry. That is fine. And then there is a prod version. In this prod version, I have the domain which we created last time. So we call by app1 domain. In the domain, we have to go to app1 folder, latest folder, remote entry. In the app2, we have to go to app2 folder, latest folder, remote entry. And where everything will be saved, it will be saved in the production folder, where container will be saved in the container latest folder inside the production. And for the app1, it will be saved inside the app1 latest. So it will go to production folder, and inside that app1 will be created and latest will be created. And for the app2, it will go inside the app2 folder, latest folder. Before I really go and create in the container, I will show you how it will be created in the production version. So I'll come out from the app1, app2, and I will say yarn run build. Because if you go to package.json file, you will see we have start and the build. Build will create in production mode and it will use the webpack prod.js. So I'll say yarn run build for app1. Let's see what happens for this. So if I run this, you will see in the production we have app1 folder created. Inside that latest folder is created and lot of files are created with the minified version of all the files. So we created app1 in the production. Let's do same thing for the app2. Yarn run build. Once I run the app2 yarn run build, you will see in the production we get created app2 folder. Inside app2 also there is a latest and we have the different file structure for that one. So before I go further, try to run the yarn build in both app1 and 2 and see if it is created in production or not. Just do it in 1 minute and let me know. Are you able to create the production version? Yes or no? We did not try it. Okay, if you have not tried it, try it later sometime. Let's try to complete the container one now quickly for today. Let's complete that one. So for the container one, we'll go by, first we'll confirm, check all the webpack part. So let's try to common will be same, no change in the common. Okay, so no change in the common. Let's go to this one, Dev. So in the Dev, we are trying to get app1 and app2, and in the prod also we are trying to get app1 and app2, but the location will be different in this one, and container will be saved in the production container latest. Next, let's go to index.js. Let me close this one. Okay, let's go to index.js of the container. Sorry, this one, not this one. So I have to create the source folder in the container, and in the container I will create two files, index.js and one will be bootstrap.js. So previously you saw we were getting import bootstrap, and then we were going to .den and blah blah blah. As we see here in the app one, we are going to den and we're getting mount function. We were putting this one in the app two. So here in the container, we don't have to do this part. We have to just import the bootstrap. The reason we were doing here, because when we were opening app 2, we were using this ID, and when we were using container, we are using different ID for the app 2. But in the container, we don't need this methodology. We just need to import the bootstrap, and we need only one ID, that is the root ID in the container. So we don't need this part in the container. So in the container, let's go to bootstrap of the container. So in the container, here we were calling this React. So let's call this React also in the container bootstrap also. We'll call the React. Then we were calling the route provider. We don't need route provider now here. We will be using it in the app directly. And we were calling the create root. So in the container, we call the create root. Then we were using this root part. We will directly use the root part here. And the mount point will be nothing but document dot get element by ID root, because in public.html we have root as the ID. So we were using mount function only when we are using in the subchild components. From the container, we don't need the mount function. We directly need to call these two part, just create root and then render. We'll use the root dot render, and we have to call one of the main application, which is the main application of the file and this container folder, which will be app.js. So I will call this app here, import app from app. So I'll be using this app to render it. So all the routing logic will be now here in the app folder for the container. We don't need it like we are doing it here. So container is little different. We directly use as a normal React application. We don't need mount. We don't need other things for that one. Okay, so just That's it. We will use a React render, and yeah, that we don't need anything. Let's try to run it now. We are not calling app1 still in the container. We just loading the container. Let's see how it looks. So let's try to run the container. Container will be, let me run it again. So we are getting some error. Let's try to see what are the error is and how to fix it. So something is we are expected a string, but got an object. Let's see if we have everything correctly. This is app1. Yeah, I didn't save it. So now we are calling app directly from the container. So what we did in the container, let's try to copy all the files in the document so you can go through it. So in the container, we go through as follows. First will be config webpack.common.js file. So container is pretty much simple right now. We are not using routing now. We will be using routing, but I will put it in the next time. Today we'll do the basic so that it should run. Config webpack.dev.js. Let me quickly write all the config webpack.prod.js. I'm just putting all the file names. So then we have public index.html, that is already you have. Then there will be app.js. Right now it will be simple. We'll be writing routing logic next time in the app one, which will call to different folders and files. Then there will be source bootstrap.js. And then there will be index.js. Source index.js. And then there will be source. Okay, bootstrap is already done. Okay, that's all the files for the container. Let's try to run the build one to see whether we have another folder for the container. Okay, so we got another folder for the container too. Run yarn run build for app1, app2, and container, and see if all folders are created in production folder. Okay, now this index.php is already created. There is one more file we have to create in the production, that is called the .htaccess file. And I will put the content here in the htaccess file. I will put the content of the htaccess file. You don't have to worry about. If you know PHP, then you will understand, but I don't want to explain also this one right now. Only I will explain that whatever URL you will call if that file doesn't exist really in real world, it will go to index.php file. That's what it means. Okay, so don't worry about too much kind of thing. In production folder, just create .htaccess file and put following contents. Okay, some things are not clear now for you, and I don't expect you to know details of that now. Time will show you what it means. Okay, so these are the files which we created, and then in the index.php file, I will call the main file, which will be the starting point of the file. So tell me one thing, whether the main file will be in the app1, app2 or container. When my main website will load, whether it should load app1 first, app2 first, or container. It should call container. So in the index.php, I will call the container file as the main file to load. So I'll just say include once. I'll go to container folder, inside container folder, latest folder, inside latest folder, index.html. So this will be the main file which will load as soon as we go to production website. So I'll go here. So production index.php will look like the following. Okay, so this will be the index.php. Now, when I go to this domain, which we just now mentioned in the container or in everywhere, this domain, it will go, it is already pointing to production. And when it goes to production, it will go to index.php file. And index.php file will load container latest index.html file, which is our main file for the application. So let's go to this domain and see what it looks like. See, when I go to this domain, it is going to app1, and this app is coming from the production container index.html file. And from this one, we will go to app1 folder, app2 folder separately in the routing, which I will explain you next time. But this will be my real domain. When I will go live, I will go to this domain, whatever domain I have, and it will load the container. And from container, we can call app1, app2, or anything which we want. Okay, that's it for today. Tomorrow, next time, we will do routing in the container. So we didn't put routing in container. We didn't call app1 or app2 from the container, which we will do next time. But we made it to production one. We made a sample application of the container, and we completed app1, app2 in the routing perspective. Any questions?